Ma'am, I'll start off on the subject, which I think our viewers, particularly in India and in the northeastern region, would be very keen to know more about, which is that India and Japan have had a strategic collaboration on many fronts, probably the deepest bilateral ties we've seen in the recent past. And how do you see in general India-Japan relations panning out in during the dealing with the COVID and post-COVID? And I'd also draw your attention to Japan as a member of the larger East Asian community, the theater of East Asia. How do you see India-Japan relationships moving forward in these times to come?
Right, Sabya. Well, difficult times for all of the world, and perhaps Japan, as part of the East Asian group of companies, has been very close to the epicenter, which has been China to begin with. Insofar as our relations between India and Japan are concerned, I think we have invested in this relationship, in particular in the last 2 decades. And we are joined by several things. The fact that we're two democracies, we have complementarities in our economies, we have converging interests, both in the political and strategic areas, and that is not only bilaterally, but regionally, globally, and so on. And so on in these 2 decades that we have built an infrastructure, or let me say a superstructure of a relationship with multi-layered platforms for dialogue between us, which crosses different different areas, from political to security to people to people, commercial, cultural, what have you. So very diverse areas, and with each passing year, this has got deepened and the areas have widened. But this is the background. What are we going through now? So during this particular period, I think what we have seen really is the two countries coming together in a sense of seeking ways where we can collaborate in this particular context of the pandemic, and also to make sure that the relationship can post the pandemic, it can continue to grow, and the collaboration, cooperation can continue to grow post this phase. So we hear that on the 10th of April, our prime ministers, our two prime ministers, Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Abe, spoke. And they spoke about their own experiences with the pandemic, how they were handling it. And they also talked specifically about the need to, post this pandemic, to continue to work together and deepen the relationship. In the course of this conversation, it's interesting that Prime Minister Abe also, in fact, appreciated the initiative by Prime Minister Modi to take a SAARC initiative and bring the countries together, to have any sort of a video conference of a summit video conference, as it were. Now, in this period, one way which is very, one area where we have worked together is, first of all, to help each other evacuate our nationals in each other's country. Need, and apparently this evacuation process on both sides has been greatly facilitated by the governments and seems to have gone rather well. Now, beyond this, what I also understand is that they have been in contact with other levels, not only our prime ministers, but our foreign ministers have been speaking. I believe our finance ministers have spoken. And I'm sure that the health ministries will also be in contact, because we do have a memorandum of cooperation in the area of healthcare. Our health minister was in Japan in October last year, and they built up a kind of platform for exchanges between the two countries. And I'm sure that will be now working in full force. And in what areas would it be? I mean, we can only surmise, but I would think besides exchanging experiences, data, information, which is so important because this pandemic knows no borders, and therefore how each one is dealing with it, what we have discovered in the process of dealing with it, and the different policy options that we have used. I think also to see where we can collaborate. And this would be certainly in areas such as, R&D, joint development of drugs and vaccines, perhaps medical devices. I'm sure we're looking at what both countries can do together in the area of biomedicine. So insofar as relationship is concerned, yes, normal exchanges as we have known, and these are sort of a very, very busy schedule of exchanges and meetings at the ministerial level all the way down, continue between these two countries throughout the year. I suppose there will be some kind of dampening down of that structure of exchange, but I'm sure it will continue in other ways. So I really don't see any sort of such a negative effect at all on the relationship. One more area that I would like to mention is perhaps India and Japan will also be talking about what we can do regionally and what importantly we can do with the global governance of international bodies such as WHO. And as you know, this is a point that was raised by our Prime Minister during the G20 recently, the virtual conference that they had.
Yeah.
So I think there are a lot of new areas for collaboration and old areas will continue to be strengthened.
Yeah,
and to talk about the Northeast continues to be very important, but I'll come back to that later, as we discuss.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, ma'am. I mean, as you said that, the portfolio of sectors of engagement surely seems to be going to be expand further. It's not going to be just limited to what it is now. Which brings me to my my next question, which is China recently announced an announcement that they would pull out many of their companies from China and move their manufacturing bases out to other parts of the globe. What can this strategic partnership in India, how do you see that panning out, and what are the gaps that need to be filled, probably on the Indian side maybe, to attract much more of those companies, maybe expand our sectors, not just manufacturing, but maybe service sectors or other sectors. How can India take benefit of this evolving scenario as part of this strategic collaboration between India and Japan?
Okay, so there's been a lot of news around this fact of Japan, setting up a fund of around $2 billion to help Japanese companies move out their production bases from China, fundamentally back to Japan. And about 10% of that has been set aside, about a little over 10% has been set aside to help move production to other countries. So we're really looking at that little space. And I'm sure that will come with opportunity. And I'll tell you why. First of all, quite, irrespective of the COVID pandemic, and quite irrespective of whatever has been happening in the relationship between China and Japan, it is quite evident that the Japanese interest in India is really growing. Because I heard that in the first 3 quarters of the of this financial year, that was the last financial year, and we go by the same financial year as us. Apparently, that is still about January that India had got $2.8 billion of FDI from Japan. And this compares with $2.9 billion for the whole year before that, the whole financial year before that. So what this means is that there is still a lot of, FDI to India from Japan is not only being maintained, but is also growing. So there is this sustained and growing interest in India. This element will, of course, perhaps enhance those numbers, we can hope. But of course, we are not the only destination. There are other destinations in Southeast Asia, which we will also be looking at and have always looked at. So we will not be in this alone. But I have another theory, and which is that, when people are really questioning this whole thing about global value chains and perhaps too much dependence on them because of the lessons that have been learned from this pandemic, people will try to localize production more. And if you look at India as a very large market, including for Japanese products, perhaps for that reason they would move more manufacturing to India. So maybe Make in India will get a boost in this process of more industry, including Japanese moving to India and manufacturing from India. So I think that certainly could be a benefit of this. But we are going to see a lot of changes insofar as previous patterns of trade and investment and so on are concerned, and this will be very interesting to watch.
Yes, yes. So it's just what you just said about we can't take the paradigm of global value chains or even sub-regional value chains for granted anymore, because the world is changing. I think we're probably entering a new normal of how trade is done. And in that, localization, as you said, plays a very important sentimental role and a very important role to come. Which brings me to my question that could parts of India, such as the northeastern region, which have an immense, at least a potential for the human resources and some of the agricultural resources to feed, to manufacture or to make in India products and services which have markets in Japan. Agri sector, for example, is one. Services sector is another. How do you see that panning out, and what can I'll bring it closer home. What can the local governments, the state governments, and the regional planning bodies in the region, in the northeastern region, do to facilitate that, so that the region takes advantage of this shift?
Yeah, well, Sabya, actually, I mean, the really I can say good news in these bad times, I had kept for the last, and that was to say that in the end of March, there are these annual letters, which are exchanged on loans that JICA give to India. And that was signed in, I think, the third week of March. And I was very happy to see that one standalone project there is about forest management and livelihood improvement in Meghalaya. And this is, of course, in addition to whatever is going on, all the infrastructure projects that are there. So I think, and since this was signed really at the end of March, and it is for the, it's for the coming years, it shows that a Japanese interest in the Northeast continues. And I think they will continue to be a very big partner for us in the development of the Northeast. Now, your second part of the question as to what can be done. I think what really needs to be done is for the state governments to come forward with realistic, implementable projects. This is really, really important. So, you're building an infrastructure that they can come and partner up. But we have to also meet them halfway, I think. And this is a time, and particularly organizations like the Asian Conference, you're on the ground there, you're so much close to the people, to the governments, to come with, as I say, implementable projects of a reasonable scale, to begin with, because we're really beginning perhaps right at the beginning. I did see in the list of projects that JICA was interested in. One was development of bamboo, but bamboo and bamboo-related products. Of course, we've heard of this before also. This has been a long-standing thing, but maybe this is something that we could really look at. And of course, always whenever it comes to Japan and the low-hanging fruits, we always talk about agriculture, processing, food processing industries. I mean, these are really the low-hanging fruits and very self-evident areas where we should be able to collaborate. With the Northeast, again, in the past few years, we've been talking a lot about skills and really, manpower, and how this can be used to build bridges with Japan. Maybe after this, there will be, and I think this area is also something which will see an increase because they will be, if you're talking about more industry moving to Japan, more production moving to Japan, you know, they have a shortage of manpower. So maybe these will be opportunities really, you know. I know the TITP hasn't taken off as much as we would like it to, but maybe this will have opportunity for the Northeast, of course, for the rest of India, but certainly for the Northeast.
Yeah, right. So, ma'am, as a follow-up to what you just said, so, you know, Northeast, if we're talking about Northeast on one side, and on the other side, on the bigger picture, there is an evolving, you know, pattern or evolving scenario in the larger Indo-Pacific region, where the countries are, you know, there's less trust on manufacturing in China, you know, more probably regional collaboration between the countries to combat common challenges. And in that context, the Northeast proximity to India's immediate neighbors in the East, how do you see that being taken advantage as part of this larger Indo-Japan strategic initiative? You know, especially India's you know, neighborhood first policy, Myanmar and Bangladesh and Bhutan. Now, how do you see that panning out in the near future?
Right. I think when we talked or we set up the Act East Forum, which came out of a summit between our two prime ministers, basically they were looking, they said that the two rubrics of the Act East policy and Prime Minister Abe's free and open Indo-Pacific vision. And this seemed to be an area where both of those would converge. And therefore, it was really not in any way limited only to the geographical northeast of India, but certainly to the neighboring countries. And in several of them, if you look at it, Japan already has a considerable presence. Again, as we're looking at rejigging of value chains, it doesn't mean that they will disappear completely. But I think what we're talking about is the dependence, the tremendous dependence that there has been on China that is going to be weakened.
Yes, yes, yes.
So will in region, and all the groupings, we have overlapping, you know, countries like SAARC, and you know, even the interaction with this entire region with ASEAN. I'm feeling that, you know, the whole world having gone through such a, you know, catastrophe will tend to work together better after this.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, ma'am. You know, I would like to end this conversation on with another question, which is again with respect to the strategic involvement of the convergence of Japan's free and Indo-Pacific, India's Act East policy, with a question that, if you remember, pre-COVID, there was a series of factors that interrupted the high pitch that was being generated in this narrative, which was leading to a summit meeting between the two prime ministers in Guwahati, and that had unfortunately had to be postponed or cancelled at that time because the narrative had gone out. Now, post this COVID, whenever we come out of the immediate fallout of the pandemics, and how do you see a new narrative being, the needed narrative being reinforced in the region, confidence being built on this, and what can the role of organizations in academia, think tanks like Asian Confluence, what can we do to bolster that, essentially? Of course, it is at the realm of government, but certainly the narrative is also bottom up. And so we need to create more ownership for that on the ground. So what can be done towards that end post-COVID, using this, you know, as a sort of a learning experience, one may say so?
Yeah, you know, it was sad that the last summit had to be postponed for whatever reasons. But I think there was every intention to have the summit in that part of the world, which was chosen with great care and with good reason. And I'm really hopeful that whenever it is that this ends, and one really finds it, very difficult to predict kind of when normalcy will be reestablished, that you would continue to have summits in the old ways that we, the normal ways that we used to have it. But be that as it may, certainly, the two prime ministers, when they spoke, as I said, they very specifically, I was looking at the release, press release, which came out from the Japanese Foreign Office, and very specifically it said that they talked about a post-COVID world and how to collaborate and cooperate and deepen the relationship there. So there is no two ways about it. And so since before this, I mean, there was a lot of talk about really what they could do in the Northeast. You can expect that they will be focused on the Northeast, will continue. Now, what can really organizations like, like think tanks like yours and academia do? The ideas, it has to come from the people. It has to be bottom up. Because so far, what we really had is at the top, great statements of intent. This is what we want to do. And there are no two ways about it. But obviously, yes, infrastructure projects have gone through, but there are certain areas certainly where you feel that the pace could have been better, that more could have been done. And one area that we really look at that is really the economic side, the trade, the commerce, that part of it. Waterways management. I mean, there are loads and loads of areas. So I think what really academia and organizations like you could do is interact with the level of the people and the level of the governments together and come out with, concrete projects which could feed into first the ACTIS forum, and through the ACTIS forum perhaps to also the summit level, so that we could have, we could really have, I kept hearing this word from a few people that I spoke to, that the need to have implementable and doable projects. That is, now we need to see something concrete on the ground. I think this is very important. And for that, I think these kind of suggestions, you're really a reservoir. You should be the sort of the area from which we will draw ideas as to what really can be done realistically, on the ground. So you have a big responsibility, I think, as academia and think tanks to come out with these ideas and interact at the local level, really, with governments and the people.
Yeah. Thank you so much, ma'am. I think that's very pertinent. And of course, you know that we have been trying to do our bit, but we'll continue to do that, and we'll seek your guidance all the time on that.
That's what I would think.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on this expert speak and sharing your valuable ideas with us. Thank you so much. I think everybody will be very much
for calling me, and and thank you, and very happy to be associated with Asian Confluence and with you. Thank you very much.